Hello, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about texturizing shears. Texturizing shears are different than thinning blending shears, and they're different than notching shears. Texturizing shears traditionally have somewhere between 13 and 16 teeth, and the teeth are farther spaced than they are on a thinner, and the teeth tend to be a little thicker than they are on a thinner. Here again, most traditional texturizers have a solid black back blade and a teethed front blade, although that can be reversed without any difference in the performance of cutting. These texturizers are used particularly in the place of point cutting, for feathering bangs, for feathering hair that's around the face, for doing a little bit more texturizing for women who want to have a little spikier look to their hair, a little more fractured look, but now not be very real extreme. And traditionally they have about a 5.5-inch blade. They are particularly useful for stylists, especially the younger stylists, because they use these techniques in cutting a lot, and they can get these techniques by point cutting, but it's a time-consuming process. And so a texturizer really allows them to work more quickly and have their work be more consistent. The newer texturizers now are like the newer thinners, where they have teeth on both sides of the blade. And this again is for making sure that there is not a line established in the hair by the texturizer, because what we're trying to get is a more random look on the haircut, and so anything that establishes a solid line takes away from that feeling of randomness, whereas the teeth on both sides make sure that that style keeps that same kind of random, free floating look that most of their customers want. Here again, on sharpening texturizers, it's the same kind of principle as it would be with a thinner blender, where the back or solid blade needs to be sharpened. If there is a nick in the teeth side of the blade, and if it's a fairly deep nick, that nick is going to have to be taken out, even though it means sometimes that you're taking away from the little lines or grooves that are on the individual teeth. You cannot give it back with a nick still in the blade. You can use the emery board I talked about when I was talking about thinners, blenders. If it's a slight nick, you can use that to take out that nick. And at any time, you need to make sure that before you give that scissor back to the stylist, you need to make sure that you have tested that texturizer on hair, real hair. You should have either with hair extensions. Some people, if they're in a van, for instance, they'll have a wig actually that's set up in the van that they can test hair under. But at the very least, human hair extensions are a good thing to have with you, so that you can test, so that you can open and close the blade. First of all, that does help when you are giving that shear back to her. There's a lot of times that if you have only used tissue paper, for instance, or even sometimes a single ply of a paper towel, for instance, it's not the same as closing it on hair. And if you give it back to her and you haven't actually tested it on hair, she may find that she gets to maybe the third or fourth tooth, and also that all of a sudden there's a little catch to it. It's reestablishing its pattern on the other blade, but if you haven't cut through hair first, it may hesitate, it may nick slightly. And if you had just done that beforehand and cut through hair on that, what you'd find out is that it will cut through just fine, and there won't be a problem. It's not really nicked itself, it's just kind of reestablishing that track on the solid blade. And also the hair allows you to do that, allows you to cut through just the same way that she would and make sure that that's not going to catch on itself. The other thing is that you want to make sure that it's cutting through and then actually sliding through nicely on the hair, because the stylist should not be closing a texturizer and opening it up and then combing through hair to see what she's done. She should be able to slide that thinner in a closed position right through the hair, so that she is instantly looking at what she's doing as she's doing it, and she knows if she wants to take more hair or if one cut may be enough. But she needs to be able to slide through with that. So having real hair to test on is really important. Thank you.